So I hate to intervene in this social event, but I'd like to share a few thoughts about the Weidenbaum Center, what's been going on. My first thing, as I said earlier, was how wonderful it is to be back together and back in person. And I'm just listening to the conversations around and stopping at a few tables. It's really very special to have this happen. I believe the last in-person Weidenbaum Center event was probably February of 2020, so we're well over 2 years. And some staff members we've had here and things like that haven't had a chance to meet people, and so this is a really special moment. As I said, I'm Steve Fazzari, in case you didn't know. I've been directing the center for the last 2 years. You'll hear a little bit more about what's been happening. The fact that I'm wearing a tie does indicate that this is a very special night. Dick Mahoney is not here to tease me about the tie. I think Peter Mackey asked me earlier, is this the first time in 3 months or so you wore a tie? I said, 3 years, Peter. So it's really great to do. It's been a challenging time. As of June 30th, I will have directed the center for 2 years, and this is the first in-person event. That's out of about 30, I think, 25 to 30 events we've had in that 2-year period. And this is the first one that's been in person. I so much appreciate your dedication in joining the events on Zoom. I've heard from a number of you, actually they've worked. We're gonna try to keep them hybrid and keep working that way, and as we move into the future, even when we're in person, to have a remote option, because it's been very, very effective, and it's great. So I do want to share a few thoughts about the center and where we're going and a lot of changes that are happening. There have been a lot of transitions in my 2 years, and I want to first talk about our staff, which is very special to me. I'm really pleased to be working with some really terrific folks, and I wanted to introduce them to you and thank them for all that they've done, especially since we've last been able to meet together. So I'm going to start with Veronica King, who I'm looking at here. Veronica joined us about a year ago, and she is the person who handles all of our accounting and reimbursements. She's been the point person for our very challenging transition to the Workday system, which was way more difficult than any of us could have possibly realized. I'm looking over here at Melinda, who recognizes that as well. Veronica has been very, very dedicated and loyal. She is also, something we didn't quite realize, handling human resource management for 50 different people, which is really quite a significant thing and a bit new to the Weidenbaum Center, but these are mostly student research assistants. These people are really critical to the support that we give to our faculty. It's also great experiences for the students, so having Veronica there to make this possible is really special, and we're great to have her as part of the team. Next, the person who probably needs no introduction to you, Alana Baim, who is our, I don't know, Alana, our person of everything in some respects, whether it's especially recently grants and administration and organizing events and reaching out to our supporters and keeping me medium sane and a lot of other things. Alana's been wonderful. As some of you may know, have been around for a while. Alana used to be the kind of administrative heart of something called the Center for New Institutional Social Science, and worked with us in the Weidenbaum Center for a number of years. And when other people you were familiar with, Gloria Lucy and Chris Mosley, retired, we're great to have Alana come back. She had to take on a lot. It's been a challenge, but she's always been there for us, and she is critical to organizing what was here tonight. Thank you very much, Alana. Our newest member of the staff is Angela Schulz, who's just joined us maybe a month or so ago officially. But Angela's very special to us. You've heard me over the last years when I'm talking about the center talk about the importance of external grant support for our faculty. Under Steve Smith's leadership, the Weidenbaum Center had taken on the process of administering the various kinds of details that are required to apply for and receive, administer, and report on things like National Science Foundation grants, National Institutes of Health, Russell Sage Foundation. I mean, just goes across the board. This is a huge priority and a growing priority for Washington University overall. It's a central goal of our dean, Feng-Cheng Hu, who is trying to up our game when it comes to grants. And it's been a challenge, to be honest, with us in the Weidenbaum Center as this activity has picked up. And we are just thrilled to have Angela with us. She's already done great work with our faculty and is really increasing the kind of support we can provide in this really important effort, really for millions of dollars of grant support. So thank you, Angela, and welcome to Washington University. Actually, she's been here with us before, but it was good. I'm sorry Elizabeth Larson couldn't be here tonight, but I do want to mention Elizabeth, and since this is being recorded, I know she'll have a chance to hear it. So, like Veronica, Elizabeth joined us about a year ago. She stepped into a critical role, helping to manage the center, providing support for all the staff, helping to chart new directions going forward. Specifically, Elizabeth led the effort to make the position, then attract Angela to this job, so I really appreciate that. She's been partnering with me to help set strategic goals for the center and how to meet the objectives, and I know she and Andrew Reeves, our new director, are working closely together right now to chart a great course. So thank you, Elizabeth. I wish you could be here, but she'll be back with you next in the fall. So let's applause for Elizabeth, who can't be here. So this is the current staff, which is terrific and great to work with. But I want to also take a little bit of a memory lane trip to recent times and recognize a staff member who provided exceptional support to the Weidenbaum Center, Belinda Warren. I'm looking at her over here. So a little bit of history. Belinda was with Washington University for 40 years. She started with the Center of American Business, a Center for the Study of American Business in Murray Weidenbaum, actually a bit before I did, which is remarkable, 2 years before I started. She had originally planned to retire a bit earlier, but when the transition of leadership took place, she said, "I can't leave you." And so Belinda stayed stayed on an extra year, and I can't tell you how thankful I am for that. It was just great. We've been friends for many years, and I've always appreciated her work. But in my first year as director of the center, our relationship went to a whole new level. I missed seeing you in the office because we were in the pandemic time, but there were many, many long phone calls and really wise counsel, great advice, fantastic institutional memory, and I guess the kind of classic Melinda phrase was, "Don't worry, Steve, it'll be fine." and in fact, it almost always was, and that's a lot because of Melinda. So thank you, Melinda. Congratulations on your retirement. I wish we could have recognized it earlier. Glad you're with us tonight. Husband Arby, very special to us all. Well, and now, next to Melinda, Professor Guillermo Rosas. So many of you probably don't know Guillermo that well because he came in at a very difficult time. But when I stepped into the director job, well, there was a need for an associate director, which I had been for the previous 12 years. And after some consultation with various people, including the folks in political science, Guillermo was the clear choice. And I asked him to take the position, and he graciously agreed. And we worked very closely together. It was a rough situation because he didn't have this opportunity to get to meet you in many respects. But behind the scenes, he's been very, very important in the success of the center for the last 2 years. Many, many discussions about a lot of these transitions, working this through. Guillermo and I worked together to administer and choose the various grant programs of the center, which is really over $1 million over these 2 year period. So a very significant role. Guillermo and I have known each other for a while as colleagues, but we've really become close over this time, and it's been great to work with you, and looking forward to it. We are good friends, so thank you, Guillermo. So Guillermo worked very closely with me and the staff, but a bit behind the scenes considering that we were not in person. But let me talk about someone now who's also unfortunately not here, but was no way behind the scenes, and that is Jim Schiele. So Jim, as we all know, we love him. He's been the chair of our Eliot Society Committee for as long as I've known. It's sad that Jim can't be with us tonight. He wanted me to specifically tell you that the reason he's not here is because he tested positive for COVID last week. He wanted you to know that because he wanted to explain very clearly why he wasn't here. He's doing well. Even by the time I talked with him and found out about that, he was on the mend. A couple of people have talked to him since. He's going to be fine, and he'll be back with us soon. But with the phrase we've all learned for the last couple of years, out of the abundance of caution, Jim thought it was best not to attend tonight. But I do want to recognize Jim, and he'll have a chance to see the video here. He has, I was going to say that it's hard to find somebody longer associated with the Weidenbaum Center than Melinda, but Jim would be the person. He started working with Murray back in the 1970s, and he's been tireless in his dedication to the center, its mission, even as that mission has changed over time. The center has been able to provide millions of dollars of research support. I am not exaggerating, millions of dollars to our faculty. We have had hundreds, probably almost approaching 1,000 over these years of Jim's time of research experiences for undergraduate and graduate students. We organized hundreds of public policy events over the past decades, and this is because of the support of the Eliot Society. This is because of the support of the people that are here tonight. Has made a lot of this possible. And I think it's fair to say that much, maybe even most of this support would not have happened without Jim's hard work and dedication. He's had a huge impact. It's deeply appreciated. On a more personal note, I admit that I had some hesitations of stepping into what I consider pretty big shoes and taking over the center 2 years ago. But even before I officially took the job, Jim gave me remarkable personal support in this role. He always had good ideas. He was always willing to listen. And of course, he was always willing to help. And as is the case with Guillermo, Jim became, for me, a really close friend over these past 2 years. It's a relationship that I treasure, and I thank him for very much. As I think many of you know, Jim is passing on leadership of the Eliot Society to the next generation. The new co-chairs will be Molly Klein, who sadly couldn't be here with us either tonight, and Steve Knight, who is right here. That's officially as of July 1, but Molly and Steve have been working closely with Jim and with myself, with Andrew Reeves, in talking about the center, and have lots of ideas and energy and interest going forward. Also, I think it's appropriate that there be another Steve in. And then, you know, we set the tables up, and guess where we all sat together? I mean, it just can't be helped, right? It just can't be helped. So this is great. This is an important transition, but Jim is not going away. If he were here, he would emphasize that. He's made it clear he has every intention of staying active in our Eliot Society. So we'll all be seeing Jim and looking forward to that for years to come. There's a certificate here. If Jim were here, I'd have, ask him to come up and get the certificate. Feel free to come up and look at it afterwards. Formally, what this means is in recognition for truly exceptional service over at least 5 decades, in the hope and expectation of many years to come, I am happy to formally recognize Jim with a lifetime appointment as Chair Emeritus of the Weidenbaum Center of the Eliot Society at Washington University. On the part of Jim, I thank you. If you want to communicate with Jim and let him pass on your good wishes, feel free to send it to us in the center, and we'll make sure he gets it. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. Also, no big surprise here, if Jim were here, he would remind you that June 30th is the end of the Washington University fiscal year, and pandemic things, we're a little behind on our Eliot Society membership goal. So in case you haven't re-upped yet, Jim would very much appreciate, as would the rest of us, if you would find your way to do that. Also, I wanted to mention that you should have received an email from Steve and Molly Klein about this Legacy of Leadership initiative that we've put together. It's a little awkward for me to talk about it because I'm part of that, but it's really about Jim maybe more than anybody else. And so if you are so inclined to provide a special gift in Jim's honor and general in honor of the leadership of the Weidenbaum Center, where are you, Mary? There's Mary. Believe me, she'd be happy to accept. And there are envelopes out there. You could just mail something in. So we'd, of course, appreciate that very much. Okay, so now moving forward, I want to talk a little more about leadership transition. It's a big motivation for what we're doing tonight. And as you know, I've been saying, we had a very significant transition 2 years ago. And with this nasty pandemic, we really haven't been able to celebrate the contributions of Steve Smith to the Weidenbaum Center over almost 20 years of leadership, and continues on to this point. And I want to take a small step tonight to recognize all that Steve has done for the center and for Washington University. So Steve Smith is the Kate M. Gregg Distinguished Professor of Social Science and Political Science, a leading scholar in the American Congress. His CV shows he's written 13 books. We have dinner tonight. The 14th is on the way. That's a lot of books, folks. It's a lot of books. Over 100 articles and chapters in top outlets in the political science. Just an outstanding scholar. He joined our faculty in January of 2001, coming from the University of Minnesota, and directed the center. He came in as director of the center. The Weidenbaum Center today is what Steve Smith made it. This is literally true because he renamed it. He renamed it from the Center of Study of American Business to the Weidenbaum Center in honor of its founder and our friend Murray Weidenbaum. Steve created many programs to enhance the research mission in the social sciences. I didn't actually go back and add this up, but kind of just doing the approximations. I'm good at that. I'm an economist. I would say that the total research support is well into 8 figures over Steve's time. This is really, really significant. It's made a huge difference to our faculty. He's deployed the center resources to help faculty secure external funding, as I mentioned earlier about the grant work. Again, millions of dollars coming into Washington University supporting the research effort. He has developed state-of-the-art social science survey research tools, which gives our faculty easy and inexpensive access to high-quality survey data in a way that probably doesn't exist at any other institution in the country. This kind of exceptional research support has helped attract a number of younger faculty, and so it's really kind of laying the groundwork for a very bright future. It was very innovative, very creative. I've always been, quite in awe, actually, of the ideas, creativity, and energy Steve brought to this. Then, what you know most in this room, the public policy programs, there have been hundreds of them in this time. The policy lunches started with 10 or 12 people sitting around a small table in the Whittemore House. We've been in pandemic mode, but before the pandemic, we were right over here in the biggest room in the Knight Center, busting to the seams with more than 70 people coming in. One of the most popular programs on the campus. I was thinking about speakers often in this room for annual dinners and other times, and I thought, well, I could go back and look at a list. I didn't need to look at a list. I just thought, Olympia Snow, Martin Feldstein, Christy Todd Whitman, Michael McFall, very, very prominent these days, Paul Volcker, Thomas Mann, Glenn Hubbard, thought leaders around the country that Steve has brought in to be part of the Weidenbaum Center. And of course, there are the rest of you that Steve has helped build a loyal, generous, and solid base of support from contributors, and I'm always impressed by your dedication to the center and the program that Steve initiated over these 2 decades. Again, personal touch. Steve has been a great colleague for me. He's been a mentor. If I've had challenges in my career, he's always there to help. I always knew he had my back, in spite of the fact that he never ceased to tease me as the only standing Keynesian left in St. Louis, as Costas will appreciate over here. And actually a label I'm happy to take, but he had to do this. So we put together a little bit of legacy of leadership. Steve, come on up. I wanted to give you this, I'll project here a little bit, this small token of appreciation from the Weidenbaum Center, and we can do a little photo over here.
I really don't know where to start and end after all of that. That's very nice of you, Steve. This has been the thrill of my life. There are some additional thanks. I have to thank Murray. I'm sure we all miss him deeply. We had so much fun. Some of our best fun was when Steve and Murray mixed it up at lunch. One of the last traditional Main Street economists, conservative economists with the last standing Keynesian, we're right here at our lunch many, many times, and oftentimes we brought in Costas just to keep things honest as a good friend and a prominent member of the Department of Economics. There are so many times when we'd go to lunch and Murray would say, I think I'll play the bad cop today. Do you think Steve will play the good cop? And I try to fashion the questions so that it worked out that way. And we'd often come back and Murray would say, well, was I the good cop or the bad cop today? Because he wasn't quite sure. But I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a couple of people. One is someone who was intended to be here, but for the obvious reasons associated with the pandemic, decided it was best not to come tonight, and that's Ed Macias. Ed was the Executive Vice Chancellor and Dean at the time that I was appointed. He appointed Steve the chair of the search committee that brought me here. So Steve and I have this connection, and this connection with Ed that dates back, for Steve, much longer than my stay here, because Steve was already chair of the Department of Economics at that time. And Steve and I met in his chair's office over in old Eliot Hall, which, thank God, no longer exists. But Ed was an amazing leader, academic leader for the university, now retired, but he's someone that, along with Murray and Steve, are the reason that I'm here. Melinda will remember a National Council meeting held in the fall of 2000, at which Ed and Chancellor Mark Wrighton made a surprise visit at lunch to introduce me to the crowd. And then that was followed a couple months later by a big dinner at the St. Louis Club. And between Mark and Ed and Steve, I had the most wonderful introduction to campus. And everything about Washington University lived up to the start that I got thanks to those three people. Many of you here have been with the center since the very beginning. You were here with Murray long before I got here, and all of you become friends, some of you very, very good friends. Of course, Jim Schiele, I must confess, has probably become the best of friends. I try to talk with Jim on the phone about everything under the sun, and occasionally we even talk about economics or politics, but we're usually talking about baseball. We're both desperately hoping that the Cardinals and the Twins will make a World Series together at some point again. It seems a ways off right now, but it could very well happen. Jim, as you know, is a 94-year-old ball of energy. He's just an amazing person. And I don't envy Steve and Molly at all in trying to fill Jim's shoes. I bet, however, you won't interrupt our events quite as much as Jim did to beg for money. Jim and I had a ton of fun with each other. There's just too many individual situations. You know, he was a friend with everyone. If he went to baseball games, he knew every person. He knew someone at the parking lot, and he knew somebody at the beer stand, and he knew everybody. And of course, he was on good terms with them. Most of you know Jim well enough to know that he's had season tickets to the Cards since the 1940s. Yeah. 4 season tickets, and I took advantage of them many, many, many times. The evening is getting long, but one story, what the heck. Okay, so Tom Eagleton. You remember Senator Eagleton? Of course, he was a great guy. But by the time I got here in the early part of this century, Tom's hearing was bad. Melinda will remember that Murray and I would have lunch with Senator Eagleton in my office, and we'd have to shut everything down. We'd even turn off the air conditioning because the background noise would make it very difficult for him to hear. He could kind of follow our conversation if it was literally perfectly quiet. What do you suppose a baseball game was like? Well, so Jim had these 4 season tickets, 2 in front of the other 2, and he naturally put Senator Eagleton and me in the same row. I don't know why. Eagleton couldn't hear a thing I was saying during the game. But the main reason had nothing to do with his hearing. The fact is, if you went to a ball game with Senator Eagleton, he would not stop talking. He would talk incessantly during the game, putting down money on every pitch. Curveball, $5. And, well, then there was the 7th inning stretch of one game, and this 30-year-old guy came walking down the stairs and stopped. You know, we're about 6 seats rows up from the visitors' dugout, and this guy stops and introduces himself to Senator Eagleton. You know, the senator's can't hear a word he's saying. Well, this guy explains that, a decade earlier, it was so kind of Senator Eagleton to attend a fundraiser for his dad, who was running for the state Senate. And he managed to get into the Senate, and now he's running for the state Senate. And wouldn't it be nice if the senator could make an appearance? But he really appreciated everything he's been doing for the family. This went on for a few minutes. Then the guy said, well, I see that they're about to start the game again. And he said thank you and walked up the steps. And Senator Eagleton turned to me and went, who was that? Couldn't hear a thing the guy was saying. And Jim, after the game, asked me, now, what was that guy talking to Senator Eagleton for? And I explained what the situation was. And, he had another friend along with him, sitting with him in his row. And Jim had apparently put down a $25 bet that they were talking about the baseball game. I think that's the most money Jim Schiele ever bet on anything. $25, don't you think? Unbelievable. So I can tell you that Jim is really a remarkable guy, became just a fabulous friend. And it is just amazing that after all these years, he's been the chair of our fundraising group. There's one or two other people I feel that I really should recognize tonight. One is Jim Knight, Steve's dad. Jim was our first chair of our fundraising group and proved to be very critical to the success of the center at a vital time. I had become the director of the center, and there was some question about how our finances would be heading. Belinda and I think she was probably more nervous about it than I was, but who knows? No, yeah, everything was just fine for her. I was obviously more nervous about it than she was. But Jim came just full of ideas about how to expand our Eliot group. And I just want Steve and your family to know how much Jim means to all of us here. He made all the difference in the world in setting our Eliot group on a brand new path. As we were losing some corporate support, we were able to gain the support of people in St. Louis for the great public policy programs that we were initiating. And Jim was absolutely vital to everything we did there. Just please know that. And I had an awfully good time with your mom and Jim at their house. They were very kind in having me over more times than I can count. They were just wonderful. Melinda. Steve has already thanked Melinda, and if Steve owes Melinda some thanks for that transition year, I owe her thanks for transition decades. She kept my head above water. I can't tell you how, most of you, many of you are executives in your own line of work and know how important quality professional staff is. I had no idea how important they would be, and I soon discovered it. Melinda led our staff, and the center just simply wouldn't be what it is without her. It's just impossible for me to have, I can't imagine what the last 20 years would have been without knowing that Melinda was here running the show. I don't want to take up too much time, but let me just say a word about Steve Fazzari. In the end, I can't thank you enough. As I pointed out, he was the chair of the search committee that brought me here, and under somewhat challenging circumstances, a change in leadership, trying to find someone to fill the shoes of Murray Weidenbaum and maybe set a new direction for the center. Working closely with Ed Macias and the chancellor on everything the center had been doing and would be doing, while all along chairing the economics department. Most of you have learned that Steve is the initial chair of a new Department of Sociology on campus that he's gotten off the ground, and he has hired a spectacular, truly spectacular group of faculty. And it was my privilege to make sure that that department was supported by the center. The hours that Steve and I spent together partnering, talking about our programs, looking for ways to be of service to the faculty, trying to create programs that were of interest and value to you, I just can't thank him enough for that amazing effort. I'm so happy that Guillermo Rosas, my colleague in political science, was working closely with Steve, because Guillermo is truly a talented leader and political scientist. And by the way, Washington University and the Department of Political Science house the preeminent journal in the study of legislative politics, Legislative Studies Quarterly. The new managing editor of LSQ is Guillermo Rosas. It's just great, Guillermo. Finally, I just want to thank you all. There is, I can't say enough about how much your support for me and for the center and for its staff has meant to the university. You know, this is a small research university, probably down in the bottom 5% of the major research university in terms of overall size, just in terms of the sheer number of students and faculty. But yet we're always listed among the very top research universities in the country and with increasing prominence in the world. This is possible because of the support of people like you. I'm really quite serious about that. I'll give you an example. The Department of Political Science, which I know best, has a per capita publishing rate in the very best publishing venues in the top 5 in the world. It's not a top 5 department in the world because it's of modest size. It's a department of less than 30 people when the top 10 average somewhere around 40 or 45. But that's what's happening at WashU. And it's what's happening in the social sciences here. It's the commitment to excellence that's making a big, big difference to the quality of the students, the quality of the training, and the quality of the research. And our contributions to the country and the world, it's possible because we have something very special in the social sciences here, and that's the Weidenbaum Center. So your support for it is absolutely vital. We have new leadership coming in. Andrew Reeves will be the new director. Andrew is a full professor, an excellent scholar of the presidency and public opinion, a great leader himself. You'll love to get to know him better. You know that the university is under good leadership. There's no better time now than to dedicate ourselves to keeping the Weidenbaum Center strong. And it would be of no greater honor to me than for you to do that. It would honor Murray's legacy, and it would be a personal favor to me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Steve. I can see where I learned how to stand up in front of the Weidenbaum Center. And as I hear the way that Steve approaches it, I was privileged to hear that for many years, often in this room, and it wasn't so easy to take over, but I really appreciate what I've learned. Okay, I'm trying to find where I am in all of this here. So it's somewhat traditional when there's a leadership transition for the incoming leader to share a few thoughts about the person who's stepping down. So this would be Andrew Reeves sharing a few thoughts about me. Now, Andrew can't be here tonight. He's very disappointed in that. I mean, the reason is, there's lots of health issues that it's not health. It's a deep commitment to family, and his wife is being honored. So she's a special education teacher at Ludu High School. His wife is getting a very special honor, I think a state level thing, and he really felt he should be there for his wife, and we all agree with him. So Andrew couldn't be here tonight, but he wants to follow the tradition. So Andrew has put together a video kind of introducing Steve Fazzari. Well, Steve Fazzari doesn't really need an introduction, but Andrew's sharing his thing. So could you maybe cue up the first video, please? Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Reeves. I am a professor in the Department of Political Science and the incoming director of the Weidenbaum Center on the Economy, Government, and Public Policy. I'm sorry I'm not with you in person tonight. Because of a family obligation, I am unable to attend in person. It is my honor to introduce to you Professor Steve Fazzari. Steve is the Bert A. and Jeanette L. Lynch Distinguished Professor of Economics, Professor of Sociology, and Director of the Weidenbaum Center. Before he assumed the position of director, Steve was Associate Director to Steve Smith for a decade. I've known Steve since I arrived at Washington University in 2013. But I've gotten to know him even better more recently as I transitioned to become the next director. Steve is a brilliant and prolific academic. His research explores the link between macroeconomic activity and finance, as well as the foundations of Keynesian macroeconomics. We scholars like to pay attention to how often we are cited, and Steve's scholarship has been cited over 20,000 times. Now, Steve, like Murray Weidenbaum, is an economist, and economics is known as the dismal science because of its often pessimistic nature and conclusions. I was recently reading that Ronald Reagan liked to tease Murray Weidenbaum about this very designation. But let me say, dismal does not describe Steve. He is one of the most positive and forward-looking individuals I've ever had the pleasure to work with. And he has done so much for not just the Weidenbaum Center, but the entire university. I am so grateful to Steve for his leadership, his mentorship, and his friendship. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Steve Fazzari.
Thank you, Andrew. That was really nice. So,
this is for Steve.
So Dr. Smith is nothing but spontaneous. But I'm not going to let it completely steal maybe the best part of my script for tonight, because I did have some difficulty determining who would hand me this nice token of appreciation for the work in the Weidenbaum Center. Originally it was going to be Andrew, but then he couldn't make it, and then it was going to be Elizabeth, and then she couldn't make it. So I decided actually I was going to give it to myself. Let me move a little bit to a little different spot. So without further ado, I am pleased to recognize the contributions to the Weidenbaum Center of Professor Stephen Fazzari. He is the Bert A. and Jeanette L. Distinguished Professor of Economics, Professor of Sociology, Director of the Weidenbaum Center on the Economy, Government, and Public Policy, Captain of the Department of Economics volleyball team that beat the volleyball club, a very kind of snooty group, for the university's intramural championship in 1994, graduate of Jerome I. Case High School in Racine, Wisconsin, and winner of the age 10 to 12 Southeastern Wisconsin accordion competition with an energetic rendition of Skater's Waltz. So Steve, it's my pleasure to thank you for your years of service to the Weidenbaum Center and Washington University. Thank you, Steve. That was quite gracious, and I'm really impressed with how you know my history. It's really quite something. So I'll have a little more to say in a few minutes about my association with the center, and that'll be pretty much the end here. But first, I am actually happy to formally introduce Andrew Reeves as the next director of the center. Andrew is the professor of political science, as Steve Smith said. He has his PhD from Washington University of the East, otherwise known as Harvard. And he's held appointments at Boston University, Yale, and the Hoover Institution at Stanford before joining us. He's a scholar of the American presidency, has a award-winning 2015 book on the presidency with Cambridge University Press, and a new book that's, if it's not out, it's about to come out soon, again with Cambridge University Press. A really impressive record of publication. Again, Steve mentioned this, and he's more qualified to talk about it than I am. But Andrew's also a beloved teacher. He won the David Haddis Award in 2021 for undergraduate teaching. That is the highest award for teaching in arts and sciences. It's really quite an accomplishment, and shows you how he is beloved by his students. His research has been supported by the Weidenbaum Center. Andrew came here as an untenured assistant professor, and he drew upon the resources of the Weidenbaum Center to support his research that has really led to an outstanding and successful academic career, and is really an outstanding choice to lead the next chapter of the Weidenbaum Center. Again, he's very sorry he couldn't be here, but he has recorded a few remarks about his vision for the center, so if we could have the second video.
Good evening again. I am proud to lead the center in its mission of promoting path-breaking research that applies cutting-edge tools and theories of social science to the world's most pressing issues. Right now, scholars around Washington University are conducting research on the causes and consequences of economic recession, how to eradicate racial health disparities, and methods to prevent the spread of political misinformation. And that's just to name a few of the critical areas of center-funded research. In addition to enabling top-shelf social science research, the Weidenbaum Center defines the conversations around public policy issues for the campus, the region, the nation, and beyond. Under the current leadership of Steve Fazzari and Guillermo Rosas, and before that, under the 2 decades of leadership from Steve Smith, and before that, Murray Weidenbaum, the center is on firm ground. As director, I will continue their good work. We'll continue to host public affairs programming to keep us informed about our world. We'll also continue our small grants program. This transformative initiative has led to dozens of academic articles and books that otherwise might not have been completed. And I also want to do more. So I want to talk to you now about 3 areas where I intend to take action to fulfill the center's mission. Each of these areas reflects new or expanded engagement with 3 different audiences. First, I'll work to bring more undergraduates to the center. The brilliant and passionate undergraduate students enliven this beautiful campus. I am excited to tell you that we'll launch an interdisciplinary public policy minor for these outstanding students, and we'll host that program right here in the Weidenbaum Center. The public policy minor will push our students to bring their considerable talents to help solve the world's most pressing problems, including challenges right here in the St. Louis region. The public policy program will leverage existing strengths and class offerings in our client departments of economics, sociology, and political science. We will also invite our students to participate in the public affairs programming from the center. Now, these fantastic students go on to become outstanding alumni, and that's the second area I'd like to talk to you about. I will work to bring our recent alumni back to the center. These young alum are making their way in the world while they are changing it. I personally know students who have graduated in the last 10 years who are doing amazing things like running for office in their hometown, starting companies, and staffing some of the most important committees in Congress. Many of them are pursuing professional and graduate degrees at the world's very best universities, including right here at Washington University. Others have left St. Louis and fanned out all over the world. But I can tell you that when there is uncertainty in the world, our alumni look to Washington University to make sense of it. And when there are political, economic, or social questions, we want them to come back to the Weidenbaum Center. We can do that by continuing to allow for hybrid participation in our public affairs programming, but we also need to rethink opportunities for how our young alum, especially those not in a financial position to join the Eliot Society, can contribute to the life of the center. Third, the Weidenbaum Center will take up Chancellor Martin's call to be in St. Louis and for St. Louis. This city and metro region is not just a great place to live, it's a great place to study, and it's a great place to learn from. You'll be seeing more public affairs programming that will focus on understanding St. Louis's challenges, opportunities, and role in the world. We have many outstanding scholars whose research is directly related to or powerfully relevant for our region. We'll also be exploring the idea of a public opinion survey focused on our region. In addition to providing new research opportunities, this survey could offer a barometer of the area's social, political, and economic views and trends. We'll be exploring this idea along with many others. I am so honored to lead the Weidenbaum Center. It is a remarkable institution with a long history of outstanding leadership, top-notch staff, and dynamic faculty affiliates. The center is also notable because of its supporters, amazing and dedicated people like Jim Schiele, and people like you. Thank you for that support and your hard work in making the center what it is today. I look forward to working with you. Thank you and good night.
I want to share, we're winding up now, but I want to share with you how impressed and encouraged I am by Andrew's ideas and what seemed like really boundless energy for leading the center. I know a lot of you in kind of nudging us in various directions on programming and emphasize in particular the importance of the St. Louis focus and doing more on the local area. I think it's wonderful that Andrew's really taking that up as one of his key objectives for the coming years. But as pleased as I am that Andrew will be the new captain of the Weidenbaum ship, I want to assure you I'm not going away. I won't pretend that the past 2 years have been particularly easy for me. They have been challenging, but I'm also, like the other leaders who you've heard from tonight, very, very grateful for the support and well wishes I've received from many of the folks, all the folks in this room, and many who will, I hope, see the recording beyond this. You've always made me feel welcomed, valued. You've always shared your appreciation for the work of the center. Your suggestions have been thoughtful and constructive. I just accepted an offer from Andrew to be a Weidenbaum Center resident fellow. That means I'll keep my office in the center. Steve Smith is also going to be a resident fellow going forward, has his office still in the center. Will remain active in the center events. You're not getting rid of me is the thing here. And I'm going to wind up here. I've shared my thanks with everyone. I've shared my thanks with everybody assembled here. But I finally want to recognize one person. Again, we've all been recognizing Murray Weidenbaum. From the time I joined Washington University faculty, which was 1982. I was 26 years old. I was remarkably young at that time. Murray was always a mentor and a supporter and a friend. My wife Jasmine's here. Murray basically arranged our first international trip to Japan. It's an interesting story if you were interested. I'll stay there. It was a very interesting experience, but a very valuable one. I think Murray's support for me personally was especially significant, considering I have and still have all 3 volumes of Das Kapital on my bookshelf. But we had this interchange, and Steve mentioned it. It was a very friendly one, and we agreed a lot. It showed that there was a lot of common interest and very respectful of each other. Murray always encouraged me to center my career at Washington University in the Weidenbaum Center, and I've done it, and I followed his advice, and I will continue to do so. So one more big thank you to everyone in the room. For those who can be here but are watching the recording of this special event, I hope you enjoy it. You make these programs possible. Your contributions support our engaged staff, the enormous difference in the research program that the center is able to do, the public outreach and public policy programs. Thanks, everybody. Good night. Glad you were here.